I'm Tanya Fox, and you're listening to Fox Talks Business Podcast. I started my career in the corporate world, but always played to my own tune and loved to think outside of the box. This didn't always serve me well with the bosses, so I made the decision to become an entrepreneur. And that little seed of entrepreneurial curiosity continued to grow as I branched out into retail, service, and franchise businesses. Now, I have been fortunate to have amazing successes in the last 2 decades, but they did not come without some really big failures and even bigger lessons learned. And that's why I started this podcast, not just to share the failures, but to show you how you can turn every failure into a success. We're going to hear from some amazing humans from around the world that are going to share their stories of the good, the bad, and the motivational entrepreneurial life has to offer. After all, life is too short to make all of the mistakes yourself, so why not learn from each other? And of course, we're going to have some fun, because as I always say, well, you know what? I'll tell you that at the end of the episode. Hello, Foxy listeners. My guest today, Jeff, I already know it's going to be a great conversation just from the little bit that we had talking beforehand. Jeff, thank you for coming on the show today.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me.
So talk to us a little bit about who you are. Give people a little bit of a background about Jeff.
Yeah, so I live in South Carolina. My wife and I and our 1-year-old live in South Carolina. I've spent most of my life here in the South, in South Carolina. We had a brief stint where we lived in Washington State, and it was awesome. But we recently moved back to South Carolina to be closer to family as we had a new kiddo. So that's a little bit of personal background. Professional background, I actually started my career, I guess you could say, with a coffee shop. Right out of college, I helped start a coffee shop from ground zero, ran that for 5 years. That turned into starting a coffee roasting company because there was just a hole in the market in our town. Nobody was doing it well. So we started that. And that's really where my love of entrepreneurship and even marketing really kind of started to take shape from the coffee industry.
Well, and I guess too, like, you know, in the beginning, like at the coffee shop, it's one of those things. I mean, you do need to do marketing. I'm not, trying to say that, but when you start something that's unknown in that area, there's almost like a different beast behind it, trying to get people to understand and see your vision as far as you do.
Yeah. Well, so when we started the roasting company too, we live in a really small town in South Carolina. And by really small, I mean 35,000 people. But it's a small southern town. We like to call it a Krispy Kreme town. The favorite coffee here is Krispy Kreme coffee. And we were starting a specialty coffee roasting company. So, one that focuses, heavily on quality and the origin of the coffee. And really taking the time to roast it well to capture all the nuances of the coffee, something that was just totally foreign here. So we would that kind of resistance that you spoke about, we would put the tasting notes on coffee on the coffee bags, and people would say, oh my gosh, there's peanut butter in this coffee, or there's pineapple in this coffee. And we spent so much time explaining that no, that's not flavor, that's suggested notes of what you might taste when you drink this. And we definitely ran into a lot of resistance here, trying to do something that nobody else is really doing.
So how did you start then to sort of get that trust? Because of course the main people that were around you were those that are like, coffee just tastes like coffee.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, we had the shop running tandem, right? So we had the roasting company, and then we had the shop, which is where people, could really come and hear us talk about it. They could taste it. We did a lot of live events too. Like we showed up to farmers markets pretty consistently. We, rented booths at a lot of places, and we just gave away samples and kind of talked about what we were doing. But at the same time, we also did a couple of things to kind of meet people where they were at. So, we had a couple of dark roasts that, were very familiar tasting. They were still better than Krispy Kreme, but they were very familiar a very familiar flavor profile for people. So it was kind of a combination of meeting people with where they were at, and then, kind of slowly nudging them down the rabbit hole a little bit, as well as, just getting in front of people at the shop.
So when did you kind of switch to start realizing, marketing was going to have to take on a little bit of a more of a passion in the business?
Yeah, so it really wasn't even in that business. It was, let me see if I can explain this well. It wasn't really while I was doing the coffee roasting company that I became super, I hate saying passionate about marketing because I'm not really passionate about it, but I found out that I really enjoy it and that I'm good at it. It was because of that company that I realized that that is what I really wanted to do. Because the coffee roasting, it was a really good side hustle. It wasn't really a viable career option. When I kind of did the math after, a year or so of what we had to do in order to make this a viable option for both myself and my partner, that was a lot of coffee that had to be roasted. And so I started to think, okay, well, I have to make other plans because, like, I don't want to get up to 10,000 pounds a week or 5,000 pounds a week, whatever it was. Like, I don't know how we're going to do that. I don't have a plan. So I started to think about, okay, what do I want to do? I have no idea. All I've known is coffee, and coffee's not really what I want to do every day. Um, which that led me to, kind of think back about the coffee shop and the roasting company both. And what I really enjoyed from both of those was this aspect of building a brand, of creating something that people could unite around, that people loved to join us with and share with other people, and to essentially be a part of. I loved whenever we made social posts that did really well. I loved when we hosted events that people just booked out for, or filled the place out for. I loved, with the roasting company, whenever I would run an email marketing campaign that, actually led to some sales. We had a list of engaged followers. So, all of those different aspects of those two companies led me to realize this is what I really would like to do for the next 20 to 30 years. Now, how do I do it?
Well, and I'm glad that you shared this because I think there's too many times, and I see this very often in my own work that people feel like stuck, like you were saying, like I've got to, this isn't tangible, or I could make this really, really big so I could live the life that I want to, but I'm not, am I really willing to put that effort and
Yeah.
that, time and that concentration in, and people get stuck there, right? Because it's that, you're almost on the edge of that cliff going, do I want to jump? I kind of just want to back away. And so I love that you told that story and in taking that step back, if anybody's in that position, to kind of go, is this what I want to do? Or are there some components that I'm doing in this business that then I want to take that and move forward with that? And I think, marketing is something that I don't think it matters whether you're retail or service. It's something that people really struggle with, especially today, because it feels like it's a consistently moving target. And you hear, there's all of those things. Oh, here's what you do. Everybody has a 3-step program on what what you need to do to
so
make
many
it
gurus,
work.
so many gurus out there. Yeah.
And it's hard to know. So how did you know? How did you kind of figure out what was working and what wasn't? What were your sort of markers?
Mistake after mistake after mistake. But no, in all seriousness, I would say that I've always been a writer. I have journaled for as long as I could remember. Wrote for a couple of newspapers in high school. And so writing has always kind of been part of my life. I never really even knew that you could do that. Oh, and I went to school to be a mass comm major. Like that writing has always been part of my life. I just never knew you could do it in a creative way,
Right.
for marketing like this. And so, growing up in a small town in South Carolina, my options were limited. I didn't even know you could be a graphic designer until I was 25, 26 maybe. And my mind just was blown that, wow, you could do that for a living, and so when I realized that marketing was, the rabbit hole that I wanted to go down, writing was going to be my my area, I guess, copywriting. And so again, I just kind of said, okay, great. Now, how do I do that? There are no resources for me in this town to learn how to be a copywriter. So I went to, I was reading Building a Story Brand at that point by Donald Miller. And that was really, and I was applying a lot of that to my coffee roasting company. And I heard that they had a guide program that would basically, I would go get certified with them. They would teach me the framework, teach me how to implement it for other people. And that would give me, some really good credibility and a good launching pad to start a copywriting business. And so that's really kind of how I landed on, kind of my lane and decided to move in that direction. And from there, it's just been, you know, constant narrowing and, going from being super general, getting more narrow, getting more narrow, getting more narrow, until now I'm incredibly narrow.
So let's talk about some tips that you have, because I think there's a lot of people who are sitting out there going, feeling like they've tried it all, or they're trying everything, or they're being told that they need to, niche down and only pick one thing, which is like it's like nails down chalkboard to me. So I hate to, it is in the way that it's spoken of, as like, forget everything else that you do and just pick one thing. And I'm like, no, your zone of geniuses and all that other stuff that you did, just don't say it all. Sure. Right. Like for me, I think like, I have such a weird combination of experiences and businesses that I've owned that I don't regurgitate as I'm trying to tell people all of the experience that I have. But I also don't want to forget it, because that's where my weird ideas or my out of the box thinking comes from. It's not, it's just really having other experiences and trying something from a different industry, and kind of bringing it over. But I know myself too, I've struggled with, trying to figure out, like, do I do email marketing? Okay, I got to do social media now. I have to do this. I have to do that. And then it becomes this weird sort of rolling target that can be hard to hit. So if someone's feeling like that, what would you say, like, what would be your advice to them when they're trying to figure that out?
Yeah. So we might differ pretty big on this, because I was a generalist for a lot of years, and I really struggled with that. I really struggled as a generalist. And again, I don't think that there is one way to do things. If there's anything I've learned in my 5 years of marketing, or as a full-time marketer, it's that most of the time my answer is it depends, right? So I know plenty of people who are generalists, and they make a great living doing it, and they have a great business. For me, I really struggled because so we'll start at the top. When I started out as a copywriter, I was doing web copy, email copy, brand messaging, ad copy, like just all the things. And it became really hard to talk about what I do and who I do it for and how much it costs, because everything just kind of depended. So in 2021, I decided to get a little bit more focused and to say, okay, well, I'm going to focus just on email marketing. And when I did that, it turned a few heads, and people, became a little bit more eager to work with me. And so that was good for business. But when I started to actually try to grow my own brand or grow my own audience online, I still struggled to grow. I sounded just like everybody else out there. And it wasn't until I decided to really kind of focus on one area of email marketing, and specifically for a certain kind of person, that's when people really started to pay attention and ask me questions, and my following started to grow, and I've sent out more big proposals than I ever have, And so for me, that was really the key to establishing myself, was to become known for one thing. And as you mentioned, my philosophy on email marketing encompasses all of my other experience. So my copywriting experience for websites, even as I spent 2 years as a personal brand strategist with Brand Builders Group. My email marketing philosophy reflects my experience as a personal brand strategist. Right. So all those things are kind of reflected into what I do, and that's what makes me able to be unique. So, I would tell somebody, Again, we might differ on this, and that's totally cool. But I
No,
would
and
say,
I think we're kind of saying the same things, and maybe I
yeah,
didn't word mine well, but I think it's it's that idea of being specific but not forgetting all that you learned
yeah,
previously,
for
bringing that
sure.
knowledge forward with you.
Well, and that is what makes you unique, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many email marketers out there have personal branding experience, or personal
Right.
brand strategy experience, right? So, I don't have to do email marketing and personal brand strategy or email marketing and web copy, but those things can influence the way that I do this and can influence my approach. Now that I've written a lot of web copy, I don't ever want to do it again. It's part of why I narrowed down. But now that I have written it, I understand it. And I understand
Right.
the role of the landing page versus the role of the email, and that helps me write more effective emails. You know what I mean? Because I understand, the offer, how to create an offer structure, how to position your brand. Then I can write sequences that help to lead people to an offer better. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's almost like that combination of all of those experiences, even though you don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do them for a living, helps you to when you get to that single targeted thing that you want to do,
Yeah.
allows you to do that better because you've had all of these other experiences that you now know that's not for me.
That's right.
Were
Yeah,
you ever
that's right.
surprised with anything like that you kind of did something and you were like, "Oh, I didn't think I was going to like that."
Uh, Not really. Not really. Recently, so like most copywriters, I've, kind of wanted to get away from writing copy and, focus more on the strategy side of things. I feel like that's the path for most copywriters or, most marketers in general. But recently I've found that I am kind of going back and really enjoying writing that copy again. So maybe that would be
Yeah.
um, my only thing is that now I'm finding I'm enjoying copy again.
So for email marketing, because a lot of people say like use that as a tool, and we're still hearing like it's really important to make sure that you're, building your list and stuff like that. Um, but do you find like what do you find is the one mistake people make when they're like, okay, I'm gonna concentrate on on connecting with my list and kind of doing email marketing? Is there something that you kind of see as like a repetitive thing that you're like, I really wish people would stop doing this?
Yeah, people. First off, I would say that I work primarily with service-based brands, and the
Okay.
the strategy for a service-based brand varies wildly from an e-commerce brand or
Right.
a retail brand or even a course creator brand. I mean, they're just so different. And so, when somebody who is a service provider, a consultant, a coach, um, even a professional service provider like an attorney, the problem is there's just not much guidance on the internet for how to do email marketing for those kinds of brands. Most of the stuff you'll find is geared towards e-commerce brands.
Right.
Most of the case studies that you'll find online, most of the people you see talking about email marketing online are talking about email marketing for an e-commerce brand, somebody that sells a physical product. And the problem with a lot of it is that it feels kind of gimmicky to people. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, the people I talk to, they look at their own inbox and they see all these emails that they don't like getting, to be frank, and they say, I don't want to look like that. Like, I don't want to do that because
Yeah.
that to me is really annoying. And I don't want to, just bombard people with buy my product, buy my product, buy my product, right? And so I would say that the mistake that I see people making, if they at least in the corner that I occupy, is that they follow some of this gimmicky advice, the gimmicky tactics, and in turn kind of repel people. It doesn't work for their brand, for their service, or their course or cohort or whatever. It doesn't really work for them. They repel their audience, and they feel kind of slimy doing it. So then they think that, well, email marketing is dumb and it doesn't
It
really
doesn't
work,
work.
and
Yeah.
I don't want to. Yeah. I ran a strategy session with a guy last December, and he was a consultant. And his welcome sequence was, I think he had a few emails that like told a story or told stories for a few emails, and then he went into some sort of sale. And it was, it shifted from this really kind of like nice, relatable series of emails that, kind of created some empathy and connection. And then immediately kind of shifted into like, this once in a lifetime offer, buy my product for just 97, stuff like that. And it was like 70 emails, like just bam, 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 buy my product. And I said, well, dude, we got to change that. Like, that's not going to work for the kind of business model that you have.
And
And
do
I
you
don't know
find
where he
like,
got.
yeah, like, cause I kind of find like sometimes, well, I'm seeing less of that these days. Like I'm seeing, hey, I would love to connect with you. And then here, buy my thing.
Mhm.
Right. Like, and I feel like it's like, I always like compare it to like the guy in the trench coat who's like, hey, want to buy a
Yeah.
watch? Right. And you're like, whoa, just back it
Yeah.
up. The guy, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
just calm down. But I think,
Maybe, but not yet.
yeah, like just, hey, can you maybe ask if I need a
Yeah.
watch first?
Yeah.
Did you
Yeah.
look at my wrist?
For real, yeah. The other thing I see, and this would probably be more in the coach or course creator space, is a lot of those folks are just thinking about the next launch, the next pre-sale, the next, special offer or whatever it is. And then their email marketing becomes sell, 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 buy
Right.
this, buy this. The pre-sale is open, get on the wait list. And that's all the email marketing is. And it becomes, after a while, it just becomes so old that, you know, every email you send me is you trying to get me to buy something. So not that launches are a bad thing. I did a launch last weekend. Uh, but it needs to be really balanced out with a strong nurture strategy,
Right.
with leading with value and earning trust and those kinds of things. Those are the things that are just super super crucial to my philosophy on actually winning in the inbox.
So let's dive into this a little bit more because I think, we have a high, I would say a high majority of our listeners are usually around the service-based businesses. And I think, that's one thing that we hear often, right? Like I don't want to be, that guy in the sleazy coat just trying to sell
Mm.
watches or, and I know they work hard, but like that used car salesman that pounces on you as soon as you walk in the door, right? Like I want people to know that I'm genuine and I care, but how do you do that through an email? So can you give us some like tips or talk to us a little bit about how you would go about sort of building that trust before you're making that sale?
Yeah, and to be clear, I don't think it's wrong in the first handful of emails um to let people know what you do. I
Right.
mean, I think it's important that people need to know what you do, but it needs to be relevant to the conversation at hand. And I think that's one thing that, um, important in this is that when you do talk about what you do and how you can help them and what the next steps are, it needs to be relevant to what you're talking about in that moment or where they are at in their journey. If you come out of left field with some random offer, and they barely know you, um, I mean, they're not going to bite, or very, very, very few will. So, a big part of my philosophy is it starts with the welcome email. The welcome email is the very first email that somebody receives. It's like, actually, I heard this analogy the other day. I said that it was like the front door to your ecosystem. And somebody on Twitter actually corrected me and said, well, Jeff, actually, I think it's the butler waiting at the front door. And I thought that was such a great analogy that it's the butler waiting at the front door of your ecosystem, waiting to welcome people in.
Right.
So welcome emails are like, they're kind of like first dates, right? Like it's your first impression with somebody. You want to make a good impression. You want to earn their trust, and you want to get to date number two. First and foremost, that's all you want to do with the welcome email. So then, for the next several emails of a welcome sequence, you would really focus on earning trust by giving more value, being generous with your knowledge, even being generous with your time and offering, reply and, answer this question and I'll, shoot you a reply back. Or, hey, if you need to hop on a 15-minute call, let's do it. But just generosity is just a very human way to earn trust. So being generous with your time, your knowledge. A lot of times, if I deliver somebody a lead magnet, I like to take a few emails and just give them more, kind of unpack the lead magnet for them. Remind them to use it, give them some tips for using it. Maybe explain something that is super, super important as a part of that, free guide or checklist or whatever that they downloaded. But all this is perceived value. It's all about, and perceived value equals trust, right? So the more that you give somebody, the more they're going to think, man, I can't believe this person is just giving me all this stuff. They're just teaching me all this stuff. And I feel, to them, it feels like it feels like a win. It feels like a victory that they got for free. And so it opens the door for you to really kind of make a stronger connection with them by sharing some stories. We long to relate to other humans, not brands and companies and departments, right? So the more stories that you can share about your own journey, that especially if they're relatable to the person reading, they're just going to really kind of expedite that know, like, and trust factor. So by the time later on in the journey, it's time to really kind of make an offer to somebody. They know you, they like you, and they trust you. And so when your offer is positioned logically as the clear next step in the journey, it becomes a no-brainer to them.
I really enjoy that because I think, even when I'm thinking of emails that I get, if somebody has a story, or it says like, I had a client that, had this issue or whatever, here's sort of how we solved it. And this is why I kind of have this program or whatever. Like, I'm more apt to read. It's true. I'm more apt to read about the program because there was a story behind it. So it doesn't feel so much as that, like, you need this, like, right? It's not that, doesn't feel so much in your face. Like, I'm just kind of going, oh, that's really interesting. I want to read about, like, how she solved this problem, kind of thing.
Yeah. I heard a quote back in, I think, January, and I've been like a broken record ever since I've heard it. But and it comes from Caitlin Burgoyne, and I think she actually got it from somewhere else, but I can't remember. The quote is, "Trust is the currency of business," and it means that people don't buy from somebody unless they trust them. And so, and that's a big element. I see people always talk about the ROI of email marketing, and the number one question I get people ask, or that people ask me, is, how can I sell more with email? How can I make more money with email? And I always tell them, you have to earn their trust first. You can't assume that just because somebody downloaded your lead magnet or, opted in for your newsletter, that they trust you and they're ready to spend, right? Otherwise they would have, sent you an email or booked a call with you.
Right.
But they opted into your email address because they kind of like you, but they're not really sure if they can trust you or if it's the right next step for them. So then your job with the emails is to earn that trust, so that you can earn the right to sell them later on. And you see this, with kind of the revival of the newsletter these days. The newsletter has become such a valuable lead magnet and a valuable nurture tool for people. People, you just lead with value. They lead by, giving away so much free stuff that, half the time I can't believe that they're teaching me this for free. And what does it do? It creates trust in my mind. It positions this person as somebody I can trust. It's as an authority, and who can absolutely help me achieve what it is I need to achieve. So trust is the currency of business, and the more that you can lead with value and position yourself as somebody that they can trust and also know and like, the more effective selling is going to be down the road.
So a little deviate, a little rabbit hole just popped up into my head. So I think that it's not a big rabbit hole, but I think what sometimes I hear, and I'm curious your take on this, is that people sort of get that, I'm trying to figure out the best way to describe it, almost like a fear of, am I going to give too much away? Like, I'm giving all of this free stuff to these people. I'm giving sort of my zone of genius. What, like, now they have everything. Why, like, then I have no sales, because they're like, yeah, thanks for all that stuff. Like, now I can do it on my own. So what would your response be to that if somebody was like, I can't give it all away?
My response is, teach everything you know, because I can't tell you how many people. Perfect example. Earlier this year, I posted a Twitter thread, a case study on here's exactly how I helped a client go from A to B. We turned a welcome sequence around from not making any money to, you know, quadrupling or 5xing the revenue in 6 months or whatever. And I made a, you know, a Twitter thread, 15, 20 tweets of exactly how I did it. That one tweet landed me about $12,000 in business of people wanting me to help them. Most people are, you know, most people are going to look at that and say, oh, that's great. This person knows what they're talking about. Let me find out if they can help me, because they don't want to do it themselves. And the reality is, if you teach people how to do it, and again, I'm a big advocate, teach everything that you know. If you teach people how to do that, the only thing it's going to do is position you as an authority. And let's just say that somebody does, you know, take your advice and they go and do it on their own and they implement it. It still positions you as an authority for, you know, and they're going to talk about you. They're going to rave about you. They're going to become one of your biggest fans. So to me, when you know, kind of keep your secrets to yourself, I don't know. I mean, I think you're just missing out on, you know, really truly creating a tribe of loyal fans who, you know, really see you as the go-to person for something. You know what I mean?
I love that, because it's so true. And I was very fearful, like early on in my career, right, of like keeping my trade secrets or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But I was the same way. I realized that the zone of genius I had is I don't stop thinking. Like, I don't stop coming up with new things. So by giving those things away, I mean, they evolve over time. My thought process change. I mean, I do things very differently than what I did when I started out. So I just found that like you said, the more that I gave and the more that I continue to give, because I know that no one is ever going to be able to think like I do, right? It's just no one is ever going to be able to think the way anybody does who's listening to this right now. And that, I always feel, is everyone's zone of genius. But I also feel that, you know, what it also does is it helps to generate me, I find, when I give that stuff away and people give me feedback. And to be truthful, those people that are the like business DIYers are not my ideal client anyway. Bingo. So I really wouldn't want them to sign up with me, you know, because I don't want to be that, you know, that hands-on person anyway. But I think that's a fear, right? If I give everything away, what do I have left to sell? And then now I don't have a career anymore. Like now I'm a nonprofit.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want to be a nonprofit. Here's one thing that I, you know, really try to keep in mind anytime I create content or help somebody else create content. And it's the idea that people don't really pay for information anymore. They pay for organization and application. Most information you can find somewhere on Google with any kind of a search. But what people are missing is the organization to that or the application. And that's what they're willing to pay for, even to the point of giving up your email address, because you would know that, you know, there is a certain dollar amount associated with giving up your email address. There is value attached with it. So even though it's not monetary value, you know, people aren't just going to give up their email address for anything. So even when it comes to creating a good lead magnet, a good lead magnet shouldn't just be an info, you know, 5 tips for XYZ or 7 things to avoid when blah, blah, blah. Guarantee you can probably find that on some blog post on page 1 of Google these days. So a better lead magnet would be something actionable, like a checklist or a cheat sheet, or even a mini course, like a 5-day mini course, something like that. Something that is actionable. A quiz. Quizzes are great lead magnets. The point is just to give somebody a quick win, make them feel like when they gave you that email address, that they got something that was organized for them, that organized something for them, or that helped them apply it and get a quick win. Same goes to for your services. You can teach everything you know, and you can give them all the information, but it's still up to them to organize it and apply it, right? So they'll pay you. You can teach everything you know, and people will still pay you to organize it or apply it. You know what I mean? Perfect example. My lead magnet is an email marketing email marketing checklist. It's geared towards a service provider. And it basically, it tells you, here's everything you need to do to set up a really strong email marketing program. checkbox by, I think there's 24 checkboxes on there, from, choosing the right service provider, to writing your welcome email, to creating onboarding sequences, to segmenting, like all these different things. So I'll tell you everything you need to do in order to set it up right. Now it's up to you, and it's well organized, but it's up to you to go and apply that. You can choose to apply it, or you can call me for help. Either way works for me. So, give away everything and people will pay you for organization or application.
Well, I think it's true, because there's lots of times that I read something and I go, oh, I like this. Like, this is, this matches what, how I feel or how I want to treat my clients. But yeah, it always gets to the point where I'm like, great, you do it. Because it's true, right? Like, I'm like, that's fantastic. That's not my zone of genius. Like, it's just, or I just don't want to.
Yeah. So last year I actually paid a business coach, a one-off session with a business coach, to help me really kind of find my niche and really kind of narrow my services, to build a service offering around the way that I wanted my business to be, the amount of hours I wanted to work, the amount of money I wanted to make. And it really started with kind of, honing in on that niche and finding zone of genius and creating an offering around that. On the sales call with her, and this is it was an expensive offer. It was like $2,000 for a 2-hour session. I was fully prepared to pay it if I felt like it was, going to actually help me. And one of the things that, we talked about on the sales call was, I said, so, hey, what makes you think that I'm a good fit for this? Like, why do you think I'm a good candidate for, this 2-hour session really helping me, grow my business to where I want it to be? She said, well, Jeff, honestly, I think you could do a lot of this yourself. I think you're on the right track, but it might take you a year to get there, maybe 6 months, but you're going to go through a lot of trial and error, a lot of second guessing. And in 2 hours, we can have it done. We can have it done, and you can basically expedite your business a year. And I said, sold. Like, send me the invoice. I'll pay it. Like, I'm good, And so that just further confirmed to me that what she was helping me with wasn't necessarily something I couldn't do on my own. I didn't want it to, because it was going to take me forever to do it, and a lot of second guessing and a lot of trial and error. And so when she said that the value is that we're going to have it done in 2 hours, sold. Like, say no more.
And I think that's a lot, with service-based people, that's where your expertise is that you can go, I'll tell you how to do everything. Like, I give tons of ideas away. I'm like, you want them? They'll come out of my head. They're not all going to be brilliant, but I'll give you them all, because there's no implementation to them. Right. So it's super easy for me to give away, but it's truth. The difference is that how to get them there quicker. So like you said, everybody can figure everything out. I mean, my son lives his life off of just YouTubing whatever it is that he wants to do. He bought an old truck, and I was like, this is going to be a mistake. And he's like, what? Like, that kid finds everything of like a nice tutorial video of exactly how to do stuff. So I'm like, the information is out there. But does he still need a mechanic? Yeah, because every now and then he needs that person to be like, oh, here, let me show you the shortcut. Or, oh, I've bumped into this issue that you're having before. Here's the quick workaround for it. So, it's funny that, that sometimes we don't think of that, because we get, sort of too stuck in it. The other question that popped up into my mind, and I thought of this when you were talking about, the welcome email and it being like a first date, and then the second email, trying to get a second date. And it made me think of one that I recently signed up to. It was a guest that I had on the podcast, and I always like signing up to their emails. And then I got like bombarded, like 3 emails a day. And so I was like, just when you had that excuse, that just sort of vision flashed in my head, because it sort of felt like, I was getting like message after message. Want to go on a date? Want to go on a date? I want a second date. And you're like, oh my God, calm down, stalker. Like, so I think a lot of people don't know, like, is there a certain number? How much is too much? Like, what do I start with to make sure that I'm not, being annoying because there's so many different things out there, right? Do it every day. You have to do it every single day. To me,
So
I'm
you're
like,
not the overbearing person on the first day, right?
yeah, you're not like want a second, and you're like, we have not
Yeah.
even ordered drinks. Can you calm down,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah. So the truth is, as I said earlier, it depends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you download my email marketing checklist, I tell you in the welcome email, you're going to get an email a day from me for the next 24 days. And I think still to this day, I have 0 unsubscribes on that welcome email. So people are reading that and they are reading that I'm going to send you an email every day for the next 24 days. Here's why. I'm not selling you anything. I'm walking through each step of the checklist with you, right? And I just want to make sure, kind of unpack everything for you. People love that sequence, right?
Right.
And but the key there is I'm telling you what to expect right out of the gate. This is what's coming down the pipe. If you don't want it, feel free to unsubscribe. Totally cool. You know, that's a very, to me, it's a very human thing to do, right? So by being transparent and letting people know what's coming, I think is a good way to kind of give yourself the ability to email a little bit more. 3 times a day, I don't know that I would really do that. You really,
I
I mean,
unsubscribed pretty quickly. By
yeah, I
day
mean, I
2,
think,
I was like, I haven't even read the first one. You need to stop.
yeah. So that's one thought, one school of thought. The other thought is, if you're leading with value and you're really, kind of focused on helping the other person, they're going to mind a little bit less than if you're just kind of talking at them, or, again, pushing your product or service or whatever. But, if you focus the emails on just being useful, being helpful, helping them accomplish something, moving them from point A to point B, uh, you know, they're going to be they're going to welcome those emails more than if you're just talking at them, or, um, trying to sell them something all the time. So be transparent right on the front end, tell them what's coming, and then you can email a little bit more, but lead with value, right? So, let them, don't help them accomplish something, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and make it like you were saying, your email, you say you're going to get an email every day for 24 days, but it's relatable to what it is that they signed up for you in the first
Exactly.
place.
Bingo.
So the interest is
Yeah.
there because then they're like,
Yes.
oh, perfect. So you're going to walk
Yes.
me through this list that I got. It makes the sequence then makes sense.
It
Whereas
feels like a bonus too.
yeah, like there's a reason
Yeah.
the emails are coming every single day. Whereas if you're just randomly spewing different
Yes.
things at them or the thought of the day, there's no consistency there then.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is, so when I write welcome sequences, they're not always, kind of 24 emails of unpacking the lead magnet. Sometimes it's a video course, and each day we drip out one video, and it helps, kind of teach something, and, the end of that video leads into, kind of leaves them hanging with, and tomorrow, there's another problem that you're going to have to think through, and tomorrow I'm going to help you solve that, so it kind of gets them coming back. Other times, it's really just kind of taking you through the journey that I laid out earlier, where, we take a few emails and really unpack the lead magnet, kind of lead with value. Maybe even throw in, a couple of emails to link to some relevant blog post or something. But it's all within consideration of the journey and where somebody's at, and understanding what this person needs to go from point A, brand new subscriber, to point B of they know me, like me, and trust me enough to actually do business with me. And if you think about like a normal human relationship, then some of those other pieces start to make sense. So you can, lead with that value. Then you can, now that they might trust you a little bit, let's help them get to know us a little bit better, because, once they see where we're coming from and what we've overcome, it makes us a whole lot more relatable, and it makes us a little bit more of an authority. So let's help them get to know us a little bit. And then we can start to talk about the offer a little bit towards the end of the sequence, maybe in, emails 7, 8, 9. We can talk a little bit more about the offer and relate it back to the beginning of the journey, and how, this is going to help them expedite something, or, really kind of help them on their journey a little bit more. And that's where maybe some more sales tactics might come in. But again, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I hope I can say that.
Yes.
But there's,
Dog lover.
there's more than Yeah, there's more than one way to do things, right? Like,
Yeah.
you could go the checklist route like I do. You could go the video sequence like I do. You could do, just kind of a traditional welcome sequence model. It's totally, up to you and just kind of what your idea is for that, initial value to get people in the door. And then it just becomes of, okay, what do we need? Email is just a tool, like you said. Email is just a tool. How do we use it to move people to, point B over here?
So you said yourself that like in your past you've always kind of been a writer, like you've journaled and all of that other stuff. And so that's something that's always sort of been an instinctual thing to you. What about those people who are like, well, I'm not really like a writer. Like I don't journal, I don't write a lot. So maybe email marketing isn't for me then, because I couldn't tell you how to professionally write something, or if my sentences are structured properly or whatever the case may be. Should that be something that impedes them? Because I think some people might, be in two cases. One, should that stop me? Or be at a situation where they're like, and I just can't afford like to hire a copywriter to do this
Sure.
for me.
Sure.
So what about for those people?
I'm a big, big believer in good enough is better than perfect. Good enough should never keep you from, or perfection, striving for perfection should never keep you from getting something good enough up. Matter of fact, I recently ran a launch on a welcome email template that I have. I charged like $17 for it. I ran a launch sale for like $8. And one of the people that bought it commented and said, great, just bought it, implemented it, took me 15 minutes. He said, when I saw this, I realized that I was failing to implement a good welcome email because I was trying to get it perfect. So I just got the template, and good enough is better than perfect. And so, that's where, like, I'm not a huge advocate for templates, but for a lot of people who can't afford, to hire a copywriter, or who don't have the time to really, learn what it takes to write good copy, good enough is better than perfect. And, get a template, or just write like yourself. That's a good start. Get something good enough up. Buy a class or a course on how to sequence something, and just get started. Write like yourself, and good enough is definitely better than perfect when it comes to email. I think you'd be surprised at what might happen if you just kind of give yourself the freedom to just kind of be yourself, and not try to be too perfect with it.
Well, and I remember hearing, when I started to try to move myself into having a writing career and becoming an author, I remember getting really stuck, and I was, taking a course, and the lady who ran the course said to me, I've written 42 books and not one of my books did not need to have an editor. So if you think that I can just sit down after 42 books and I can just write and it's perfect, it doesn't happen. Right. And that made me go, oh, okay. Like, great, perfect. Like I could still, I should just go ahead and do this, because I think, sometimes we get stuck, or like you said, we get stuck in it has to be perfect. If it doesn't go out perfect, or if it's just in my voice, then people are going to think it's amateur or unprofessional or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And I really, really disagree with that. Mark Schaefer wrote a book back, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 years ago now, called Marketing Rebellion. And one thing that he said then that to this day I stick with, and he said, the most human brands are the ones that are going to win in the marketplace. And I think that, well, I don't think, I know that the emails that feel more human, the emails that feel more like you sat down and wrote it, not some professional copywriter, those are the ones that are going to connect with people the best, the ones that people are going to read and engage with. And that's what we want with emails, right? If the focus of your email is to earn trust and to establish relationships, you'll learn how to position your offerings. You can learn how to position your offering. You can learn how to talk about it more effectively over time, right? But the more you can, just sit down to write. Imagine that there is one person that you're sending this email to. Imagine your favorite client in the world, and you're sending them this email on how to XYZ. And that's gonna be so much more engaging than if you got, hired a professional copywriter to write something that's perfectly crafted. Anytime I write a sequence for somebody, we always have a 90-minute call, strategy call, not only to build a strategy, but also so I can get a feel for their own voice so that I can learn how to write like they talk, right? It's not necessarily about how they write, but it's how they talk, because we want their personality to shine through the copy. We want them to feel like, Tanya just sat down and wrote me this email right now, right? And she wrote it just to me. Those are the most powerful emails, not the perfectly crafted, 800 word emails.
Well, and I think it also helps you when you get onto that sales call, because when you start talking and whatever it is that you're saying sounds similar to your emails,
they feel like they know you.
They feel like they know you. They're like, oh yeah, like it's just my buddy that I'm sitting here chatting to. So
yeah, great point.
So what is, if you could think of one thing that you were like, avoid this, or this was a mistake that you made that you wish you would have learned beforehand, what would that be?
I would say it's focus on earning trust. Everybody wants to sell more with email, and you should. Selling with email is not bad. Otherwise, I mean, and ROI is important. Otherwise, what's the point? I want to make more money with email too, right? But focus on earning trust. This is the same for social media, I would say. Focus on leading with value. The more that you do that and position yourself as an authority and become known as the go-to person for XYZ, when you make an offer, you're already going to have, these people as fans, right? You're gonna have earned their trust. They're gonna know, like, and trust you. So many people want to rush into the sale and they want to learn how to sell better, but they don't know how to use it as a tool to earn trust. And that's just my biggest advice. Is just to focus on how can I use email to earn the trust of these people that just gave me their email address. The selling will come.
Sorry. I will edit that part out. So I love that, because I also think that, people get scared to be genuine, and over the last few years, I've, that whole saying, like, try to be like super professional. But what I've realized is when I am being me, when I'm using my sarcastic sense of humor, when I'm doing stuff that I find is funny, the more I sort of tip on that edge where I don't really think about it, I'm like, dude, this is really funny. And then I put it out, I get more feedback. Like every single time, it never fails. I'm connecting with that key audience, because I mean, I'm not for everybody. I totally understand that. But I think too long, and I think there's a lot of people in business that feel like this, is that they try to hide who they are because they're trying to emulate or show up as somebody else that they deem is successful, is showing up. And I think, like, what you're saying is when you're genuine, when you're building that trust and showing who you are, it just becomes easier. It becomes easier to figure out what to write about. I would imagine it would be easier to actually write those things, easier to make connections, and then way easier to do the sale when it's, you just being you.
I saw the same thing in my years as a web copy writer, and that everybody kind of had this, misconception that we have to, like, sound professional. We have to look, like corporate and sound this way, and it has to be stuffing. We have to use this important jargon. And the truth is, like, nobody cares about that stuff. Like those, like, jargon and, stuffy, stiff language, that doesn't make you sound smart. It makes you sound dumber. It makes you sound cold and distant. And so, when you, deliver some witty remark or a joke and you get a lot of feedback, it's beautiful, because it turns, email, people perceive email to be a one-way street where, this brand or this company is talking at me and they're telling me to go do this and they want me to go do this. And they're always trying to get me to, buy this. But when you turn it into a two-way street where it's a conversation, that's where the magic happens, right? Because, conversations and relationships, those are the lifeblood of a service-based business. And so the more that you can use email as a tool to do those things, to turn it into a two-way street and make it, about you and the reader, not the reader and your brand and your products. To me, that's just where the magic happens.
Yeah, I sort of had this image in my head of like, and I'm dating myself, but like it's almost like you're creating all these little pen pals all over the place. And I remember doing like that was the most exciting time, right? Is when you would get
That's
that
cool.
letter, the non-windowed envelope in the mail, and you were like, oh, this is so exciting. Like I want to see what's happening. And I think that's what everybody wants for their business, is somebody to go, oh, that's amazing. Jeff sent me another email. I can't wait to see like what the story is this time, or, what great advice he has. And then it's not just like, ugh, delete, delete, delete. Right.
Yeah, for sure. And side note, I wonder how long it's going to be before somebody brings pen pals back and it becomes like the thing to do again.
I think it's getting close with all the AI.
With like snail mail.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's getting close. I'm shocked. Like I'm in Canada, and I'm always shocked that like our post office has not figured that out yet and like started it themselves, because they're always talking about how,
True.
Not a lot of people are mailing stuff anymore, and it's going more to packages. And yeah, it's one of the collaboration things that I'm like, y'all are missing something here. But anyways, that's a whole other rabbit hole there.
Somebody's going to do that soon, and they're going to do it really well.
Yeah. And I'll be a part of it, because I always think that's fun.
Yeah.
Jeff, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving, I think there's so much in your messages that you gave, but so much tangible stuff that people can take away and just start implementing. I'm going to make sure that we definitely have the link for your newsletter in this episode that people can sign up to. But what's coming forward to you? What is the next project or item or something that you're looking forward to?
Yeah. So I mentioned that I just recently launched my welcome email template, and I hesitated to do that for a long time because I was, anti-template, like most copywriters. I was anti-template for a long time. And, for, 9 to 10 months now, I've been teaching a methodology on welcome emails. I run a quarterly cohort or a quarterly workshop, and just teaching a framework for successful welcome emails. And I got the idea a month ago or so and said, I could easily turn that into a template. And actually, my own welcome emails follow the same framework that I've created. And they're very successful. So I'm just going to turn my own welcome emails into a template and sell it. Again, under the idea that, when it dawned on me that good enough is better than perfect for people. People don't, and they're not going to pay me, I don't know, $300, $400, $500 to write a welcome email for them. So I turned it into a template. The launch was really successful. People really loved it. And it got me thinking a lot more about templates again. And like, wow, okay, so there is a demand for templates there. And a lot of people are kind of struggling in that, perfection paralysis mode, and good enough is, fine for them. So it's got me thinking a lot more about how can I create actual welcome sequence templates. And so that's really kind of the, direction I'm thinking now, is how can I create some of these customized sequences based on industry, or, based on, specifically like what kind of lead magnet are they coming from? Because I don't think you can, just have a one size fits all sequence, as we've, kind of discussed on this call. But depending on the industry, and if it's a lead magnet, or, or if it's a checklist or whatever, like we can create some sort of template, and, maybe create a whole library of welcome sequence templates, that you could just kind of pick and choose based on what you need. So that's really kind of like the thing that I'm thinking down, the most. The other thing would be kind of a cohort, based approach to, lead magnets and welcome sequences. So maybe, a monthly or quarterly cohort to help people, do it themselves, as, a cheaper option than hiring a copywriter. So those are the kind of things I'm thinking about, less of the one-to-one kind of approach, and how can I, do a little bit more of the one-to-many with this.
Well, I like that, because for me, templates are not something that I ever take verbatim, but they help me to think differently. So it's more, to me, I think of a template more as like a fill in the blank, where I kind of go, oh, this makes a lot of sense to me, or this gets me to think a different way. And then I can word it in my own words, but I don't have to like make everything.
Well, and I say that in the kind of the cover sheet for the welcome email template is this is not meant to be, verbatim for you. Like my goal for you is that you take this and it inspires you to inject your own personality and to replace, say, oh, I could say this a whole lot better. I could say this differently. This is not meant to be, verbatim line for line. So I say that right off the bat. I am in total agreement with you that a template should be more inspiration or a starting point for you.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting staring at a blinking cursor and you don't know what to type, template can be a godsend,
Yeah.
to just
Well,
get the ball rolling, get the juices flowing.
Yeah. It helps you to create as opposed
Yeah.
to copy and paste.
Yeah, for sure.
Well,
Love that.
thank you again so much. I think there's so much to it, and I do feel like we could just go on and on in this topic, but I have taken enough of your time today. So thank you so much, Jeff. To give us all of your shameless plugs. Where do you want people to go to find you, and where do you hang out the most?
Yeah, head over to www.contentremedy.co. There you can find my the checklist I was talking about. You could subscribe to my weekly newsletter. It's called Human Sending Emails. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's about a human-based approach to, or an ethical approach to email marketing, I should say. So you can find all that there. You can find my template. You can find, if you want to work one-on-one with me, all that stuff's there. But I hang out a lot on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, I'll teach you everything I know, and you can go take it and DIY it, till the cows come home. I don't care, but I teach everything I know on Twitter.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we have all of the links to where people can find you, because I think this is a topic that people are craving for, and I'm glad I found somebody with the answers.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been an honor being here.
One of these days, I'm really going to have to record what the after, or actually release, because I always record, when we talk afterwards, when the recording for you guys actually stops. But there's always some gems and some extra questions that come to my mind. So one of these days, if you're interested in that, let me know, reach out to me, and I'll make sure that the editing team actually starts doing that. But I really wanted to have Jeff on the show because I think that, we're seeing more and more these days that people are talking about email marketing, but people are feeling like spammed. I've talked about this on my LinkedIn, how people will connect with me, and then the first thing they do is sell to me before even getting to know me. We're hearing constantly people talking about know, like, trust. That's, words that just seem to flow off of people's chests, and, when they're talking about stuff. But what I loved the most about what Jeff said is just start, be genuine with what you're doing. Don't just be jumping into a sales post, and give everything that you have away, because that is where the connection is going to be. That is where you're going to get people to know who you are. That's where people are going to start seeing you as the expert, because you're giving them things that they never thought of before. You're giving them reminders of things that they've forgotten about before. And there's just so much good that can come out of it. So if you are one of those people that are sitting there and wondering, am I giving too much away? How much is too much? Then I really do suggest that you head over and look what Jeff has to offer. I know for myself, I'm going to be signing up to his email because there's some things that I want to improve with how we send out. So if you're interested in joining my email list as well, we're going to have the links to that at the bottom of this episode in the show notes. And of course, all of the ways that you can connect with Jeff to learn more about his newsletter and get some of his information, because, we are all here to make money, but we're also here to make connections, because the whole reason we got into business was to change lives. And to do that, we have to kind of be ourselves. So I hope you got as much out of this episode as I did. And I hope that no matter what it is that you're doing today, that you take time to have fun. Because as I always say, if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?